newest residents. This is a colony that was just cut out of a tree that was fallen, and I made the video on that, and we're going to have to see what we'll have to do with them. I'm sure I'm going to have to feed. Before I start out with the hive inspections, I wanted to mention one more thing about that new colony that I brought home from the tree cutout. I'm going to have to make some decisions today about some colonies. If they're too weak to get through winter, I may have to combine them with others. And that one particularly, the box that they're in, they're not going to be able to go through winter in that box. It has very thin walls. They would have almost no chance, and they have hardly any resources right now. So I'm going to have to decide what to do with them. I'm kind of hoping that some of my other colonies might have some excess resources that I can give to them. But either way, I'm going to have to either combine them with another colony, or I may put them in the middle of that large white hive, which would put 3 colonies in one hive, which is a little crowded, but there's space for them right now because none of my colonies are all that big. And it may also help to get through winter with 3 colonies in that one box. There will be some benefit of having the heat from all 3 colonies in there. So we'll see what goes on with them, but first we'll get started in the other hives. And we'll start on this close end, which at one time I thought this was a very weak hive. I mentioned before they had a die-off a while back, and I believe it was because of pesticide poisoning. So I was really concerned about them. When I did that inspection on them in a video called A Tale of Two Colonies, I was really kind of surprised that they were actually doing fairly well. Their numbers weren't high, but as far as the bees go, as far as their brood and their comb, they were doing all right. So let's see how they're doing as they get ready for winter. Hoping we don't get into a bad situation here. I had that bait hive, that bait hive sitting on top here. I had moved it just off to the side, just behind where the camera is sitting. And so some of these bees are a little confused about where their home is. So I hope we don't get some fighting starting here. I set that bait hive on top of this hive because anticipating that I would be putting that colony in the middle of this hive, so get the bees accustomed to this location. So after that last hive inspection, when I inspected the first colony in the big white hive, Taj Mahal hive, things got a little interesting. And as I was inspecting that hive, as I had it open, there started to be some robbing. And I assumed it was from the new colony, which was in that little swarm trap that was sitting on top of the hive, because I had to move the swarm trap from that exact location. So I assumed the bees were coming back to there, finding the opening, going down in there, smelling honey in there, because I'm opening up the frames and everything, and caused all sorts of chaos. And so after I finished that inspection, I was planning to inspect the other end, but there was so much robbing activity going on that I wasn't going to open up that end and keep that thing going. So instead I closed up the hive, and I decided that that new colony in that swarm trap, they would be the most desperate colony I have right now. They just came out of that tree, they came with nothing. So so I said, well, I'll go ahead and I'll mix up some food and feed the bees. I mixed up some 2-to-1 sugar water, and mixed up enough to go ahead and feed all the colonies to fill up 5 feeders. Well, so I came out here. First thing I want to do is feed that colony, get them distracted, get them building comb. And so I took that hive and opened it up, and so I want to show what I found when I opened up the swarm trap that I had used when I did the cutout on a fallen tree recently. On the day I did the inspections of all of the other hives, I had this colony sitting up on top here and ran into some issues. When I was inspecting one of the colonies in the large white hive, I seemed to have a lot of robbing going on. And I had to move this box out of the way in order to open up this hive, and I thought it was these bees coming back to where their box was, finding an open hive where they could smell honey and things kind of going south. So that's what I thought. Up until that point, I noticed some activity at the entrance of this swarm trap. So I thought they were doing fairly well, but I knew they were going to need resources because they didn't have much coming with them from that cutout. So I went in the house, I prepared some sugar syrup, got ready to put it in this trap, opened it up, and here's what I found. Nothing inside. No bees. Now I may find, this is a few days removed, so I'm probably going to find some parasites in here. I see some hive beetles up on top here. That wasn't there so much before, but you know, in the absence of bees, things take over. So I had a lot of empty comb that I had put in there. And I got to the comb that I had pulled out of the tree doing the cutout. The comb I mounted is there, but they've completely cleaned it out of any honey. This is the frame that I had. I got some wax moth stuff going on. Again, that wasn't there, but wax moths are kind of the natural cleanup crew. But empty comb is what I'm trying to show you. The bees had cleaned out any honey that was in here, and the comb was empty, and this is how many bees I saw. Bees were gone. Now, I will point out, this is the frame that I had replaced the wire with fishing line in order to mount this comb, and it actually worked fairly well. So maybe not such a bad concept, maybe not the easiest way to go, and I don't know if I will do it again, but at least it kind of proved out there. So we've got that. So that's where we are. There's another piece of comb that was in here that didn't get mounted quite as well. If you watch the video on that cutout, you saw that I had a little trouble after that first frame, and I won't go too much into that here. That's all there is. The rest is empty comb. So the point of the story is the bees are gone. There wasn't a thing in here left over from that colony that was moved. And when I took them out of that tree, there were a lot of bees. So the big question is, where did the bees go? So I had mentioned that when I was inspecting the colonies in this white hive, I suddenly had a lot of robbing behavior that I thought was from the colony in that swarm trap. And after I closed up the hive, it was just a lot of pressure on the hive. Now the entrances didn't seem too bad. These colonies are strong enough, they were defending themselves fairly well. Saw a little bit of fussing and fighting at the entrance, but it wasn't horrible, kind of surprisingly. However, around the hive, I saw bees checking every crack around the hive. At the vents at the top, there were bees just crowding into the vents, trying to find some way in there besides the entrance. So pretty clear robbing behavior. However, after the fact, I noticed that there was a lot more bees in these hives than I had noticed before, meaning a lot more activity and a lot more bees around the entrances. So there's one of a few things that might have happened. One is that the colony that was in that swarm trap may have just absconded. They cleared out their honey and they may have just left. But I didn't really see any swarming activity. What I suspect may have actually happened is that when I opened up that hive, and what I saw as robbing behavior may actually been the bees responding not so much to the smell of honey, although that may have been a factor, but it's possible that I did not get the queen when I did that cutout. I didn't specifically find her, but I did sweep the bees into the box in hopes that I would get her. It's possible that they were reacting to the queen pheromone smell as much as the smell of honey. And I'm wondering if these bees may have joined these other colonies in absence of having a queen in their own colony. So that's a possibility. I don't know how likely that is, but the fact that I never actually saw like a swarm behavior, never saw the yard full of bees flying around swarming, I may have just missed it, but I never noticed that, is what makes me think that maybe that's what happened rather than the bees absconding. Live and learn, and move along, prepare for winter. Thanks for watching. See you next time. wherever they went, I hope they're doing better.